Alright, we are ready. Coming up next is Natty with Crash Team Racing.
Okay, hello stream everyone. The timing starts when I gain control, so I'm just after this load screen. So 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome to the adventure.
So this is Crash Team Racing for the PS1, played on a PS2 to make use of fast disk speed, which increases the load times by somewhere between 1 and 2 minutes. And basically, this game is an adventure where a group of marsupials, weird hybrid animals that Cortex have created, are going to save the entire world from the evil alien nitrous oxide, because he wants to turn the planet into a parking lot and enslave the entire population. And he said that if we beat him in a race, he will sod off. So that's what we're going to be doing. So it's going to be a lot of driving sideways. It's going to be a whole 50 minutes of driving sideways, pretty much. So for a kart racer, there's obviously the usual tech of driving and then getting these little mini turbos. So if you keep an eye on the bar at the bottom right, every time I'm drifting, that bar fills up, and then when it turns red, that's when I want to release an MT, and then you can do sets of 3 MTs every time you do a drift. So once you've done 3 MTs, you have to start a new drift, so you can do 3 more. And you'll notice I'll be emptying a lot during the run, because I'm getting put off. There's an arm in front of the screen. Okay. So I'll be doing the MTs to keep my reserves up. So whenever you're driving and getting boosts, there's sort of an invisible counter on the game, and that records how many reserves you have. And in every frame the game's running, you're actually losing those reserves. So what I want to be doing is making sure that I'm keeping my reserves high, because if I have reserves, then I keep boosts. So the most boost I can get off regular turbo pads is like those green turbo pads I drive over will give me sort of a full boost, and you can tell I have full boost because I'll have a large amount of fire coming out of the exhaust. And as soon as I lose reserves, I'll lose the speed boost that fire gives me, and I'll get sort of smaller fire coming out of my exhaust, or no fire at all. So the more boosts I do, the more fire I get to keep, which is what the run really focuses on. I will lose fire immediately if I touch a wall, if I obviously crash, or if I brake. So it's really important that obviously you don't want to hit the wall anyway, because that's slow, but you'll also lose your reserves. So it can be sort of a few seconds every time, so it's really important not to hit walls. This track we're going to have a new tech called Speed Ghost. I wasn't the person in charge of naming any of the tech in this game. That was the time travel community back in probably 2005 or something. This is a rocket. Okay, that's right where that happens. That meant I went too slow on that one. So a Speed Ghost, as the name suggests, is a ghost that gives us speed, which when we go down these little hills, we get more speed than the game wants us to have. And what the game tries to do is it tries to slow us down. So to negate that, we start hopping, which is called frogging. Again, not named by me. So here we've got more speed than the game wants us to have, and then we're just going to take that speed all the way across the line. Like that. So that's going to be a tech we'll see quite a lot during the run. Because the benefits of frogging is the less time you spend driving on the track, the more speed you maintain. And again, the game's trying to take that speed away from us all the time. But
when you get a TNT,
you can get sort of a range of speed ghosts. Sometimes you can get a little bit more speed, sometimes you can get a lot more speed. We should see some tracks coming up which will get a lot of speed off a little bit of a hill. Sometimes like that track you can have a huge hill and you might not actually get that much speed. So it is quite difficult to get as much speed as you possibly can off these downhills. So this is going to have more of sort of a similar tech. But we've also got what's called a mega speed ghost. So if you thought a speed ghost, well, if you thought that was impressive, you've not seen a mega speed ghost. And I'm gonna hype it up and probably not get it, but when you've got a speed ghost, you can actually gain even more speed from sort of going down the hill. So this little hill here can give us even more speed than we might already have. So hopefully we'll see that in lap 2 and 3. If I do get that, I'll point it out. If not, then well, you'll forever be in mystery. So yeah, this is Mystery Caves. So you'll notice I got some Wumper on that lap. Wumper adds speed. Every single bit of Wumper I have increases the base movement speed of my cart to a whole whopping 2% increase once I've got all 10 Wumper. Which might not seem a lot, but because each lap is sort of somewhere in range of 37 to 40 seconds per lap, it's worth it on this track to get the Wumper, because it's actually sort of in our path. On some tracks, it's not worth it. Like the track before, Rouge Tubes, we didn't bother to get any Wumper in that track because there's only one Wumper box, and you have to sort of go quite a lot out of your way to get it for sort of 23-second laps. So we'll see some tracks we will. Some tracks will only get one Wumper crate, which we did on the first track, because, like I said, one Wumper will give you a speed boost, and a box can give you anywhere between 5 and 8. It's quite random. So you need to get 2 crates to guarantee to get 10 Wumper. Ooh, this is looking good. Okay, this is sort of what I was talking about. It's a little bit faster. And then you can carry that speed up that hill. Another benefit with froggying is that when you froggy up a hill, it's actually slightly faster. I don't know the mechanics behind it, but it just do it. If you froggy in a straight line and you don't have any additional speed, it doesn't slow you down. But a lot of the time you want to be making sure you're actually gaining reserves. So if you're driving in a straight line and you're not drifting or anything, then you're losing reserves. And once you sort of get to high level play, you'll try and optimize the amount of times you can drive in a straight line, basically, not have to drift. So we're going to get into another track here. So this is the first track that will have sort of cycle-based obstacles that are actually going to be a bit of a problem. So the cycles in this track are the same every time you load the track for the first time. If you're doing time trials, and this is what I find funny, the cycles don't reset when you reset a time trial, so good luck getting the God Run, die on lap 3, basically. Okay, oh, this is good. So this is an intended shortcut. Okay, I did get it. Surprisingly, the intended shortcuts actually rely on you timing your jump or having speed. And that saves a little bit of a corner. So that cycle there is a bit annoying. So now we're going to get a speed ghost off these walls. So this wall here, I'm going to jump off it, and I get this huge amount of speed off here. And this is, again, another form of a speed ghost. So the game is trying its hardest to slow us down. And because we have so much speed, you start noticing that we do lose it the longer we're trying to froggy. But weirdly, the walls in this track sort of work. They're like downhills, but you sort of only have to jump off them and you'll get a speed ghost. So there's 2 parts where we do it. So that one, obviously, and then this one. Ooh. So that one can give you, this wall can give you a speed ghost as well. So we want to sort of keep that one and then jump off here. You can keep your fire like this, which is better, because if you don't get a very good speed ghost and then you sort of lose the speed back here, which is I already am, I can drift it out and I've got fire, so I'm still keeping that additional bit of speed. So, and again, this shortcut. Oh, okay. I'm actually, I don't think I failed that in the marathon before, but honestly, it gives me a heart attack every time, because it's kind of funny because there's that. Ooh, that one nearly hit me as well. Speed goes. You have to sort of go around the AI. If you hit an AI, you'll lose all your speed as well. If you do that on that ramp as well, I'm trying to hop over the ramps in the middle of a froggy chain, and that way I keep the speed. If I do a froggy too low on the ramp and hit the top of the ramp, it will send me upwards and I'll lose all my speed. So it is really important trying to keep that speed. So this is going to be the first boss race. Every time we do 4 races, the 5th race will be a boss. And it's for some reason, Ripperoo doesn't have to qualify for this race. He's just going to come against us. And he's going to be dropping TNTs behind him, sorry. And we've already overtaken him, so we don't have to worry about that guy. There isn't really rubber banding that we have to worry about. It's very, well, non-existent really much. Only sort of, you'll notice it if you're just doing really badly. Okay, like this. Oof, okay. So, unlike some kart races, Mario Kart, you don't have to worry about the AI in this game, because very rarely will they be a problem. They might be a problem if you go to lap them, actually, and they might get in your way. So we might see that in some later tracks. Because I sort of messed up lap 1, we probably won't have a problem with the TNTs. Because we can catch up with Ripperoo, we can actually start catching up with the TNTs he's dropping, but hopefully that won't be the case on this one. Well, not that that's a good thing, but it's a bit of a silver lining. But yeah, so this is just the exact same track as we've already done before. And there's not really usually much differentiation between each lap. Okay, and then that's sub 1. So you might be wondering sort of why we're playing as Coco. And it's a very easy answer is she's everybody's Crash Bandicoot waifu, and end of story. But no, each character does actually have different stats. Some characters, there are sort of pairs of characters. So you've got two characters that have top speed and rubbish handling, which is Tiny and Dingodile. Then you have two sort of characters, Crash and Cortex, sorry, which have sort of equal stats for handling, acceleration, and speed. So they're sort of your balanced character. Then you've got Polar and Pura, who are the slowest things known to man, but they can handle really well. So while you're driving at grandma's pace, you can at least make the corners. And then you've got Coco and Engine, which have the highest acceleration stat, and they've got good speed, and they have okay handling. And because they don't have the highest speed stat, we actually do lose some time in tracks. So any track which is pretty much just a straight line and a little bit of a turn, we'll lose time to Dingo and Tiny. But then most of the tracks, when we start getting into Hub 4, get a lot more technical, a lot more sharper turns, and that's where we'll start gaining time using Coco. Engine, again, has the same stats as Coco, but I don't know why he plays Engine, honestly. So, I'm not going to repeat that comment. So, this is the first track where we've got sort of RNG that can actually cost us physical, noticeable time. There's a shortcut here where we need an item we can throw. So this is the perfect item for this. So we just go down here, hold up, and then shoot the potion to the door, and it opens this little shortcut. If we don't get an item we can throw, we just cannot take that shortcut, and it saves about 2 to 3 seconds, about 2 seconds each lap. And you can lose 6 seconds if you get 0 out of 3, so getting no items to open that door with. And if you're going for world record, this can sort of be a reset point, because 6 seconds to lose is just too much. Luckily, okay, thanks Cortex. We got quite lucky, we got 3 out of 3, so we didn't have to do that time loss. This is where AI can start getting annoying, because we've caught them up. They start getting in our way a bit, so hopefully have to dodge around them. This one's not too much of a problem, the AI. If I was a little bit faster, I would have only sort of seen 2nd and 3rd place, but because the laps weren't quite good enough, then sort of getting in the middle of the group instead. So I'm running on the NTSC version, which unfortunately doesn't have the language glitch, but it's faster and easier. Emphasis on easier, because PAL is very unforgiving on this game, and it is sort of 2-3 seconds maybe to 10. It's somewhere, because we're talking about frame rates between two versions that are pretty much identical. We don't really know how much different PAL is, we just know it's a little bit slower. So a lot of people are sort of converting to run on NTSC. The big difference between NTSC and PAL is that NTSC has slightly higher jump height. So whenever I'm doing these little froggies, or whenever I'm going to a ramp, doing any sort of jump, NTSC has a little bit of an advantage because it jumps higher. And if you look at the speedometer in the bottom right, every time you're in the air, that counts up. So an NTSC, a regular jump or NTSC is 26 on that little counter, and PAL is 23. So it's not a big difference, but it's enough to make some shortcuts really difficult, or more difficult at least. There's not too much to really go through on this track. There's a speed ghost here, which we can... didn't really get it. That was quite a precise one, so I don't really worry too much about that. This is a good NTSC track because of this shortcut here. So I want to try and sort of hit that part of the hill and do a mid-air MT over. Because I got it right both times, I can't tell you how hard that is. But if you don't get a jump going up that hill, you get stuck on the grass and you can sort of lose 2 seconds. So it's quite nice to get that. It looks pretty cool as well. So that was quite a good track. So now we're going to be going to Papu's Pyramids. This is the first track that has a unintended shortcut, I guess. We've done a lot of corner cutting already. But this is where we'll start getting into something a bit more significant. If you're new to running this game, this is probably the bane of your existence, as it was when I started running, because this is sort of your first major reset point until you're grinding half a second and resetting over hitting a wall. So the first part of this track's pretty standard. This is another example of where Coco's superior over Tiny and Dingodile because of this spiral. You can make this with Tiny or Dingodile, but it's a lot more difficult. So you pretty much just have to hold left the whole time. And we can skip this grass. That was a good jump. I can cut that corner. So we want to take this. This is an intended shortcut. And then land on this wall, also intended. And then we're going to go over here. And we're going to jump on this wall. And then we're going to land in front of this finish line. So when we go on that wall, you'll notice that Coco sort of bounces instead of driving normally. Because that wall isn't coded to be a part of the track, the game's like, oh, hold on a minute, what are you doing on there? And it tries to push you back onto the track. So you have to be really careful that you don't get pushed off, because that's what the game wants. So we want to jump back up here. That was a bit faster. And then we want to make sure that we jump the other side, the right side of the line. If you jump over the line, the game thinks you've just jumped straight over the line, and it doesn't realize that you had done a lap. So you'll start at the very beginning of the track in probably 8th place. So you have to really watch out where you land. You can recover it on this track, but there are some tracks later on where you can do the same thing. So, okay, that was fine. There is quite a lot of time lost in that track. If you bonk off the wall, it's about 15 seconds you can lose, and that's... But 10-15 second time losses start getting instant resets, so it's kind of quite difficult. We've got a little cutscene here. This is Aku basically telling us how to access a boss garage. Every single boss has that single cutscene. So once we've activated it that time, it won't activate again. And basically, it's quicker to activate it there than to try and avoid it. Because then we can cut the corner coming into this track. You can avoid that cutscene completely during the run, but you start losing so much time that you might as well just take it at some point, and that's just the quickest bit. So this is another track. This is quite a simple track, actually. Probably, it's a nice breather, but then my PB loses about 5 seconds in here, which is hilarious. So really, the only thing we have to worry about is the armadillos. They're on a cycle. Again, they start when the track starts, but because it's such a short cycle, we can't really predict where it's going to be. There's a little speed goes down the hill, and then we can froggy across the dirt. The off-road on this track, some parts, and this is one of the tracks that has very... the off-road really slows you down. So you have to be careful that you're not on there too long. If you get enough speed, you can sort of fly straight across the off-road. And then some tracks will have quite off-road that doesn't really slow you down nearly as much. So this speed goes off this hill. It's only for a moment. And that was actually quite a good one. And then you just fly straight across the dirt. The water also slows you down, and it causes the console to lag. Which is quite funny. I am running on a fat console, so if you have a 30k, a 39k, or a 50k, that's perfect to run this game, because as you'd expect, the newer the hardware, the worse it is to run a PlayStation 1 game. Because if you have the newest version of a PlayStation 2, a 90K, or if you've got a 77K or a 70K, so basically all the slim models, they will actually lag more than a fat console. And there's also a funny thing with 90Ks that they load some of the levels too fast, that they actually crash. So you can just be playing normally and the game will just crash in a load screen, and it's like, well, okay, there you go. So running that version can be quite annoying. I know a few people have run on that version and lost really good runs to the game crashing later on. So that can be obviously not ideal, but yeah. So this is going to be another visit to Papu's Pyramids. Again, we've got a boss who's really slowing us down, throwing them potions on the track. This one's in a really odd spot, actually. Okay. But because of this shortcut, it's a very high chance that I'll catch up with him. So lap 3, we'll start seeing some of the potions on the track, so it's going to be a bit of a slalom to try and avoid them all. So hopefully we get a good cycle. It's sort of random what trajectory he throws his potions at, so we have to be really careful not to get hit by one. It's not consistent, unfortunately. And he throws a mixture of red potions and green potions. Okay, this isn't too bad. The red potions give you a random status effect, so they can either slow you down or they can give you like icy tracks, so you drive less if you're driving on ice, or they can just randomize your item. So they can sort of be quite detrimental in the run. Just that again. Okay. And almost slapped him. So that's hub 2. Unfortunately, because we're not using the language glitch, we have to look at the regular cutscenes for this. Yeah, Papu was a big boy, that is for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So we've got a $3.50 donation from Blitz Phoenix 98 saying, "Hey Natty, I've been excited to see you perform live this weekend. Hope you do well this marathon. Good luck on the run and crush Oxide." And we've also got a $12.50 donation from RDJ saying, "Can't wait to see Hat in time."
Yeah, shoutouts to Blitz Phoenix, who's so burnt out on the game, he's waiting for his 1 second PB so he can quit playing it forever, basically. No, he's a great time trial, and there's lots of great time trials for this this game. There's a really active time trial community as well as the RTA community. But you have... Oh, okay. Well, we're going over there. That was a little cut that I wasn't able to do. So this is another track that has cycles. But this boulder is the most annoying thing because it's not a consistent cycle. I think it's a global cycle or something like that, but I never seem to see it in the consistent place. So we've got a little intended shortcut. So here's where we lose 10 seconds. Oh, okay. So that's a nice little trick where we can do a mid-air MT off that that fence. If you hit the fence, it's a 10-second time loss every single time. So I'm really hoping I don't hit the fence because it looks really horrible because you have to do the drive of shame back onto the track as you go and do it normally. So that is actually part of the game. The time trials go for that. The Oxide shortcut, the time trials again. Yeah, this is a professional speedrun. So there isn't really too much. This is the shortest track in the run, which is quite good because I absolutely hate it. So hopefully we get... This is the worst lap for it because the AI can get in the way. Ooh. Okay. So yeah, I was joking. That's absolutely easy. Get it every time.
Congratulations. You win a trophy.
So this Hub 3 as a whole sort of has the most difficult tracks. I guess if it's an opinion-based thing, but I reckon that Hub 3 is the hardest. This is where you've grinded for 3 hours to finally get past Papu, only to lose your run in Blizzard Bluff sort of territory. So here's another track with some cycles, and the cycles will determine whether or not we can take a shortcut, but because they are... Ooh, that's... Thank you, Wall. Because the cycles are generally consistent, as long as I don't keep messing up and going really slow, it should be okay. So we're going to just do a little drift. We're going to froggy through there, and that's where the minecarts go. And that, again, that's an intended shortcut. But we have to try and take it so that the minecarts are not going through there. So if I don't make any sort of major mistakes and completely mess up my cycles, I should be fine each lap. The fun thing with running on NTSC is that all the cycles are at 30 frames a second, as opposed to PAL, where they're just 5/6 speed. So the cycles, the minecarts actually move faster on this version, but they're not. Again, both versions you can pretty much get through there. On PAL, if you're fast enough, you can actually catch up to a cycle and hit the minecart from behind, and it will still flatten you. Because I don't think the developers thought that would be possible, so that makes sense. Okay, so that's fine. There's an invisible wall right next to that fence, so if you drift too close to that fence, you'll just straight up bonk. I'm just going to frog at the end here. So that's not too bad of a difficult track. That's a nice breather after Blizzard Bluff, but again, it's very easy for a run to die there.
Congratulations. You win a trophy.
So now we've gone from the track I hate the most to the track I also hate the most. And the common theme is it's a snow track, so I'm sure a lot of us can have hate for snow levels or underwater levels, usually that kind of thing. And it's definitely snow levels with this game. So we've got another unintended shortcut on here, which consists of having to sort of drive forwards to drive backwards. There is an even quicker version of that, but I'm not going to talk about it because I'm not going to go for it, sorry. So there's these seals which will spin you out if you hit them, so we'll watch that. So we're going to take this boost pad. Oh, that's not good. Hit that wall, okay. So that basically jumps across the lake, so we don't have to go the long way around there. Ooh, that was close as well. Ooh, keeping the audience on their toes. It's under control, don't you worry. So yeah, so that shortcut, we have to sort of go forward to go backwards, and then you drive up to the wall, and then you try and mash the shoulder buttons so that you jump onto the wall, and then it gives you sort of a propulsion over the lake. This is one of my most hated tracks because I just very much dislike the track as well as the shortcut. Because there we want to... Oh, it's really close. Oh, that's not going to make it. Yeah. There is... We do the slow strat. So we can... This is like the beginner strat. And you can just... It's like 100 times easier to do it that way. But for the sake of going fast, we don't want to stop and then turn all the way around and then drift on the boost pad. We just do a 180 while frogging, so we keep our momentum going the same direction. Again, because we're frogging, the game can't like correct the direction we're going, so we're just going to keep that momentum as we do a 180. But I guess I will touch on the quicker way of doing it. You can actually do the shortcut without turning around at all, so you can come straight from this angle and drive close to the wall and do a U-turn, and you don't have to go over here, which saves a whopping 3 seconds. And I thought that was high enough. This is usually what happens. Once you failed it once, that's it. You're donezo. Okay, there we go. That's not too bad. It's only about that first lap is about 8-9 seconds lost, so it's time that adds up, unfortunately, because with the nature of this game, you have to be able to be consistent at something 3 times, and then if it's a trick that's on a boss track, you have to be consistent to do it 6 times in a run. Sorry. And the boss tracks are usually the tracks that I don't like. But. So now we've had a fun-filled Hub 3. It's time to go to Tiny's Arena, which, for those who haven't seen this game before, it's 3 minutes of cornering, basically. Unfortunately, there's not a lot going on in this track. And each lap is about 1 minute long. So, This is a good test of your driving skills. I'm not going to say what a good lap is because I won't get any. So, but there's a lot of sort of little tricks where we're getting off these hills. You can jump off the top of a hill and it pushes you forward a little bit, and then you can go down a hill and get a little bit of a speed ghost. But they don't really stay, so there's no speed ghosts in this track that you can keep. So it's a lot of trying to corner as good as you possibly can. You can get the wumper as well, really important obviously, with 3 minute track time. But there's not really too much to talk about in this, so if you guys want to sort of plug any sponsors or whatever, then you can go ahead.
Nothing at the moment, but I do want to say that you guys still have until the end of the run here to try and see the other category, which is the glitched warps. It is currently just shy of its estimate, if we can just get that up there. It is currently sitting at $34 out of $125, so if you guys can get your donations in between now and the end of the run, we'll be able to get more Crash Team Racing, and I know you guys are enjoying this.
I guess one of the extra things with this track, there is a shortcut, believe it or not, which saves 13 seconds per lap. And at the end of this straight, there is one of these fences, sort of that one right ahead, and you can drift up that, but it's very difficult to the point where you just can't really go for RTA, because once you drift up it, you slide all the way up the ramp, and then land on the other side of the track, which is down here, and then you just cross the finish line. And that, again, that saves 13 seconds per lap, but I have never seen anyone do it as this character. The time trial world record for this track for the longest time only got the trick 2 out of 3 times. So if you can imagine grinding not even a 3 minute IL for this, and not getting it 3 out of 3, sort of puts into perspective how difficult that trick is. And then I think there's another trick that was sort of recently discovered, which is, again, sliding up a wall to skip part of the track. But unfortunately for RTA, it's more of a nice, it's a welcome break after quite a difficult few tracks. This track also gets very laggy down here. Because I'm running on NTSC and it's trying to keep a nice steady 30 frames a second, there is noticeable lag. The PAL version doesn't lag because it's running 25 obviously, which is a lot easier on the console to do. But I'm quite surprised that this is a PS1 game and the PS2 can't handle it. So this is a cutscene coming up that if you were using the language glitch, which I haven't actually explained, but basically on the PAL version, because you can select a different language, obviously all PAL games sort of cover the main languages, sort of English, German, Italian, French, Spanish, whichever. If you quit out of that menu, so if you just press triangle, the game doesn't select a language, which is, I don't know why that oversight's in the game. So it doesn't select a language, and then that pretty much removes all the text from the game. So every little bit of text that's not a number, so obviously loading wouldn't show up, and then anything on the HUD is completely gone. So it gets rid of all the text because it doesn't know what language to load the text in. And then it also starts messing about with the cutscenes. So the cutscenes, obviously all the spoken words, apart from some sounds, all the spoken words are completely removed. And it actually gets rid of that Komodo Joe cutscene. So that Komodo Joe cutscene just doesn't happen. Not really sure why it's completely skipped, but the other cutscenes, instead of skipping them, they actually swap some of the boss heads around. So if you're actually interested in seeing that, the world record for this game is on PAL, and I definitely recommend seeing that if you haven't before. Yeah, this is going to be more of the same. Lap 3 is when we might start catching up with Komodo Joe's items. Now, Komodo Joe drops TNT, he throws TNTs that land and then blow up, and he drops those nitros. So we got really lucky because he can drop a nitro on that hill and you can't actually see it. Or he can actually put a nitro behind an item crate, which I think is the kind of thing you'd do if you were playing against your brother at age 5. So he's really tricky in that way. You can also jump over this finish line if you drift too high up the hill and then hop over the finish line. It's really easy to do on accident, and again, you can't recover that one at all, so you have to do the whole lap again. But you can still win the race. So it's not like straight up run killer unless you can't catch up with the AI, because the AI will slow down because it's realizing you're like a mile behind. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, hang on, put the brakes on. So now we've got out of hub 3, we've got hub 4 coming up, and we're gonna start introducing a new mechanic. The developers loved the idea of super turbo pads so much that they put one in every single track in hub 4. So we're going to start off with engine labs and we can sort of go through what it is. Just a side thing, when you're going through hub worlds, the game's actually trying to load the next hub, and if you get stuck on a really bad lag spike, it will extend your input and you sort of drift in a straight line and you can't do anything about it, and you take really wide corners. So it's something to hopefully not happen, but it can during the hub worlds. So what I was saying about these super turbo pads, it's basically regular boost pads that give you an insane amount of speed for a second, and then you're supposed to lose that speed. But we're deciding now we're going to keep that speed. So we're going to take this and we're going to go whoosh, straight into here. So that speed that we had there, I want to remind you, did not name this tech. It's called an ultimate sacred fire. I didn't pick a good game to look cool on, unfortunately. So what that basically does, and we're going to get that boost pad, so this is the same boost pad again, we're going to go on here, and what this does is this keeps this really high amount of speed that boost pad gives us as long as we have reserves. So I'm not going to be able to drift while I'll have that. If I drift at any point, it will overwrite that that USF, which we call it, and then we can chain it, so we've still got reserves and we can use that boost pad again. So it's really important in this track that I get as full of MTs as I possibly can. So you see that bar at the bottom? I want to MT when that bar is as full as I can possibly get. Oops, didn't drift that way, but I got the boost pad. So I want to make sure my drifts are as full as they can be, and that I can get that extra boost pad on the barrel section just as a bit more of insurance. Because once you run out of reserves, that's it, you have no speed. So it's quite risky in that regard. So once you've sort of, until you've got like really good at doing MTs, you might sort of find that your USFs will sort of run short. I'm going to use that. Power-ups also give you a little bit more reserves. And because I'm running an NTSC, and it's 30 frames a second, my reserves deplete a little bit quicker than they do on PAL. So this track and Cortex Castle are probably the only two difficult tracks on NTSC compared to PAL, as opposed to the other 14 in the game. Don't have to worry too much about lap 3, because we are just going to cross the line. We don't have to worry about keeping the USF afterwards. This one's quite lenient just to carry it to here, so that went quite well. This next track is a lot more tighter with your reserves, and again, it's using the same mechanic of getting a super turbo pad and then keeping that speed. But as I was saying, each track in Hub 4 has these turbo pads, but we only actually use them on 2 of the tracks. Hot Air Skyway and Oxide Station, we actually skip around the super turbo pads, which is a shame because I actually quite enjoy using them. But it's slower to go that way, so we won't see them after this track. So this is very tight in reserves to the point where you sort of have to route which boost pads you're going to go for. I'm a bit of a baby, so I always go for this one over here. You can skip that corner, especially on PAL, because you don't need as many boost pads on PAL as you do on NTSC. So I usually go for that, but you can skip that one if you get really good MTs. So this one here loses very little time to go for, so I always get that one as well. We cut that corner, and we've got this little shortcut, and we want to land on this. So this is the super turbo pad. If we don't do a jump at the end of that ramp as well, it doesn't give us any height, and we don't get a landing boost when we land. So I managed to keep it all the way to first ramp, and that first ramp will straight up overwrite it. And because we don't really have that many reserves coming onto that ramp, there's no point trying to keep whatever speed we get. So we're just going to start drifting again. You can get sort of screwed that if you run out of reserves as you're going over that ramp, you'll actually end up on that first part of the track with no reserve. So, okay. Unfortunately, I missed a couple of reserves because I did that, so I'm probably not going to get a very good USF on this lap. You really do need to get as many as you can. We do just sort of skip between that spider. You can fit between the spider and the wall. Okay, so it's ran out here. So I'm going to just froggy it out, because like with the Speed Ghost, I have more speed than I should have, so I'm going to try and keep it until the turbo pad. It's slower to froggy with a USF though, or at least it's not worth doing. So the game isn't trying to slow us down when we have a USF, so we don't need to try and froggy, because sort of the nature of the speed boost. You just keep going with it regardless. So because it's lap 3, I don't need to worry too much about having reserves. And then we've got... Ooh. I'm sorry. That's not happened before. I'm ashamed of myself on that one. I've let the community down. Unfortunately, you can't really see where you're gonna land from that one, so I think I went on the boost pad a bit of an angle. That's not in a run though. That's just for you guys. So now we've had an exciting journey. We're gonna do the same 2 tracks twice. So it's gonna be this track and then Oxide Station, and that's all we're gonna do now for the next 10 minutes of the run. So this is where, if you're on a good run, this is when spaghetti starts producing out of your hands and your arms become a lot more heavier than when you started. So we've got this little... So really what we're going to do here, we're going to go up here and then we're going to go all the way back down. I'm going to get this bump cray, why not? I'm going to go whoop, whoop. So that saves about 5 seconds. I also got a little speed ghost. So basically what we're doing there is we are loading part of the track to then jump down to the part of the track we loaded. So this game sort of loads parts of the track as we drive them. So the more pixels we drive of a track, the more it loads further ahead for us to drive on. So what we need to do is we need to drive all the way down. So once we get back here, so we want to drive all the way down here and then do a U-turn. We can cut this corner. It's a nice little time save and then just get this. So if we try to jump down there without loading the track, we will just get picked up by Aku as if we made a mistake, basically. So the game's loaded that track by us going further down so that we don't get picked up. If you get picked up, the game will just put you back on the part of the track you were, which is above. Because that's where it thinks you should be. So we're trying to trick the game into thinking which part of the track we should be able to drive on. And this is going to be a common theme with the next track as well, so I'm going to be doing something similar. Okay, that was a little risky. That little corner cut, I probably lose more runs doing that than doing the shortcut. It really doesn't save much. Oh, okay. Annoyingly, I can't really do much about that. The AI... Because if you do lap 1 and 2 well, the AI are going to be there regardless, and they sort of take random a random path, but they sort of take similar paths each time. Does that make sense? So they can randomly choose between a number of different paths, but you don't really know which one it's going to be. So it's guaranteed to be the one you're trying to drive on. So now we've got the track we haven't seen yet as Oxide Station. This is a point where I was saying about getting the boss cutscene. We'd have to go all the way around to skip that pinstripe door, which is why we get the boss cutscene earlier on. Because we can avoid it, but we have to go so far out of our way to do so. So, if you've somehow survived Hard Air Skyway, your whole room's full of spaghetti right now. So we're gonna try and get onto this wall, and then we're gonna jump down here. So we've loaded that part of the track. The AI are... Oh no. Oh no. Okay. I did a little bit slowly, so I couldn't really adjust too much, but we're going to jump on this wall. We're going to go over here, and then we're going to jump down here. So basically what I've done is I've combined three sort of shortcuts into doing... So I'll try and explain it a bit better as I'm doing it this time. There's also a little speed ghost we can get here. But it's taken the same principle of loading the track so that we can jump onto that part of the track again, and the game isn't going to try and pick us up. So we jump up this wall because it's quicker to go down this way than to drive the track normally. And we want to try and land as far away from that boost pad as possible because that loads more of the track. And we're going to jump on this wall. And then this is further on into the track. So that's that skip, and then this is a completely different skip. That second skip, the developers just completely didn't realize you could jump onto that part of the track. So actually I think I'll get the minimap up. So if you try and follow where I am on the minimap, this part at the top we have to do, but that whole thing on the left and the whole thing in the bottom right we completely miss. So if you're interested in seeing how much of this track we do skip, and you can sort of watch that. But we sort of... I knew that was a little too tight. Let's drop down. Basically, we're skipping about 20 seconds of this track per lap, which is quite a big thing for a kart racer. Okay, so we're going to just go from that middle, then we're just going to go back up here again. So again, we're going to ignore the cool space bit and the bit with the super turbo pad, which is a shame. When I was a kid, I absolutely loved the space bit because it's also low gravity, so you jump really high in the air. But that's just too slow for speedrunners, unfortunately. But each one of those shortcuts saves about 10 seconds each time, so I swear it's a minute saved in one track, and then you have to do that track twice. So it's a 2 minutes saved over the run. So again, we're gonna, if we got past those tracks, now we've got to do them both again. So we're going to have another boss race where we're against Pinstripe. It's going to be again the same track, and as long as we're ahead of Pinstripe, he's absolutely not going to attack us at all. So funnily enough, Pinstripe just has really bad AI. He's actually the slowest boss. But the track is also the most difficult to race a boss on casually. So hopefully he won't be a problem. But we got a speed boost. That's very rare, actually. The AI and the bosses can all get speed boosts at the start of the track. So hopefully he's not going to be in our way. Where is he? Okay, he's doing his own thing. If you're unlucky, when you turn around, he can actually shoot a bomb as you're doing that part of the shortcut, and it will sort of home in and hit you. So that's the only sort of point where he's threatening. If I don't screw up at any part of this track, we won't really see him again. So hopefully that'll be fine. Yeah, that little hairpin's quite difficult. We U-turn around that corner, and then we have to get that boost pad. That boost pad's very tight on that corner, and if you miss it, then you have to do this whole section without any speed, basically. So that can lose sort of 2 seconds, and it's really precise. Get the one crate. Didn't get it lap 1, so it is optimal to get it on that pass and not get it the first time around, because you have to detour a little too much. I didn't really explain that shortcut. I'm so used to doing it, I forget it's not intentional. But you do have to load a little bit of the track before you sort of U-turn backwards. A lot of people probably noticed that one as a kid, because if you look at the map on that one, the two tracks are just right next to each other. It's basically asking you to jump over that fence, which is actually another skip for this track. But you do have to load a little bit of the track first. You can't just jump over the fence, which is probably the developer's way of trying to deter you to doing it. So you might do it once and think, oh, this isn't possible. You might not do it again. So because we haven't made a mistake, Pinstripe's somewhere around here. And we're just gonna... So Pinstripe, we didn't see him at all. If you make a mistake, you actually have to follow Pinstripe during this part of the track. So you have to sort of lose about 5 seconds or more. And then you have to actually follow Pinstripe because you didn't lap him, so you have to follow him on that section. So, and the good thing with Pinstripe is because he shoots bombs, there's nothing on the track for us to avoid. which is absolutely not the case when we race Oxide, which is going to be the last race. Again, back at Oxide Station.
Here's the key for your troubles.
So this is the big angry alien who is going to enslave the entire planet if I don't beat him in this 1v1 race. So I think it's a very reasonable deal. We can only enter this once we have 4 keys as well. That's why we have to do everything else to get the keys to enter the boss race. So Oxide's got his fancy car, and he cheats. Look at that. He's got a very good. Oh, this is really good. So if he's going to cheat, then I'm going to cheat as well. So because there's just Oxide to worry about, I don't have to worry about all the other AIs hitting me. And we're just going to do the same track again. So we're already ahead of him, and he's going to see giving his voice lines about how he's better than us and all that. They didn't really think this one through, because they don't have any different voice lines if you're ahead of them, so that's kind of funny. So it's going to be the same lap 1 and lap 2, but then lap 3 is where we're going to get quite a big RNG part of the run. And basically, your run can end on the very last lap of the very last track in the 50-minute run because of RNG. So, if you feel like running this game, don't. So hopefully, it's not too common for your run to die, but it is possible. Or your run can just suddenly become a lot more difficult to not mess up. So, because Oxide's throwing so much stuff on the track, and we're going so fast, we're actually going to start catching up with him, and we're going to start seeing what he's put on the track for us. So it's all plain sailing on this part. Then once we get to the start of the track, there's going to be potions scattered across the track here, and they can block the shortcut, which they almost did. So you can have... I didn't land very well because I had to take a bit of a wider route. But those potions can block the shortcut, and you have to either take a really weird route, or you just, pretty much just get hit. So I got quite lucky there. Then that nitro that's at the bottom is always there, so it's always funny if you get hit, because it's your own fault. So this is the last part of the track now, so time's coming up when we cross the line. And I think that was almost a painless Oxide Station, so I'm quite happy with that. And time. And yeah, so now we've saved the galaxy. We still have a little podium with our wonderful bandicoots, and then poor old Oxide's lost the race and he's just doing a weird Irish jig. And then because we're running the NTSC version, we can load the credits and our run is valid. If you run the PAL version, the credits don't work and your run is sadly not allowed on the leaderboards. We've actually had that argument before. So, yep, that's CTR. Woo!